I have a question for you that's separate.
Yep.
Okay.
Spit it out.
Your husband Jerry's passed away.
Say again?
Your husband Jerry passed away.
Esther's
right?
husband
From
Jerry?
I'm sorry, Esther's
Made
husband
his
Jerry.
natural transition to the non-physical, the next logical step.
I understand. We're all
Best thing
gonna
that
go.
ever happened to him or you.
How do you communicate with him? I mean, how does Esther communicate with him or you?
The same way that she does with us, because he's in the same place.
Does he communicate back with you?
Oh,
Oh, you don't stop, huh?
endlessly. If Esther's lonely, she can't hear anything. She's missing him, he's gone. But when she's in love with life, when she's tuned in, tapped in, turned on, he's right there. Playful, playing, assisting.
What one tip you can give me to connect?
See, this is the
Is there?
reason. Yeah, the tip. It's through meditation. You got to start there. You got to start there, and then when it comes. Esther couldn't find him because she was looking for places where he wasn't. And once she remembered or realized that he's right there, so in a place of loneliness, she can't find him because she's not ready. But in a place of loving something, what happens to so many of you? Those dearly departed are right here, out here on the leading edge with you, involved in what you're involved in and thinking about what you're thinking about right now, all the time. But when you're thinking of them as gone, then you don't let them in. When you're thinking of them as missing, then you don't let them in. In a sense, everything that we've been talking about here today about your inner being and about what we're thinking about you is the same sort of thing. Everyone who's made their transition to the non-physical is aware of you and playing with you in the thoughts that you are thinking. And the very reason that you feel negative emotion is because you get on thought tangents that are not in harmony with all of that. The real answer to your question is you got to practice it. But what you're practicing is not receiving and chattering. What you're practicing is being in the receiving mode. So what's important to you, which is always offering to you, can be heard by you. There's a big difference, and we want to make it. We're going to wrap this up here, but the thing that we really want you to take away from this, and we touched on it earlier, and we want to come back to it, that thinking a thought is different than receiving a thought. Thinking a thought is different than receiving a thought. Now, once you are in the receiving mode of a thought, then you can ponder it. And as you ponder the thought, now you're thinking the thought, but you are in the receiving mode at the same time. So it's like giving and receiving, giving and receiving, giving and receiving. Are you following how it all fits together? But if you don't take the time to get into the receiving mode first, then you might be thinking a thought that's really off base from who you really are, and then that thought cannot lead you to satisfaction. It can lead to more thoughts, but it cannot lead you to the satisfaction that you want.
So would you say, as far as, since we're talking a lot about meditation today, would you say that the best way to practice meditation is in the morning and just to sit quietly?
Here's what we encourage. Morning is better because there's less chatter to quiet. But any time is all right. Any time that you have the time. If you can be alone, that's best. If you can close your eyes, that's best. If there's not a lot going on around you, that's best. Quiet your mind and focus upon something that is not a very big thought. You hear the sound in this room? That's what Esther would choose in this room, because it's consistent and she has to focus to hear it. And it's not interesting. She has to focus to hear it. And after a little while, it just kind of wraps itself around you. It's like your friend. Just you and that sound, that's all that's there. And your mind is going to wander, but then just focus back on that sound. Your mind may wander, but just focus back on that sound. And after a little while, your mind will, in essence, give up. It'll just be you and that sound. And that one. So focus back on that sound. And then, it won't be long before you'll begin to feel some detachment. After you've done this for a while, something within you will be moving you maybe. You'll find yourself maybe floating, it feels like, sort of detached. Refocusing on the sound, still there. The Something serious going on. And then, somewhere along in there, a thought will occur to you. And then turn your attention to it just for a moment and just briefly evaluate. Did I receive that thought? Chances are, yes, you did. And then just softly focus on that thought. And then stay in your chair as long as you can without feeling the inspiration to get up and do something with that thought. And we would just do that every day, every day, every day, every day, every day, every day, every day. We know it's a big price to pay for bliss and happiness.
Perfect.
Enough?
Thank you. Yes, absolutely. Thank you.
I took up meditation when I was 18,
Yes?
and I was doing it twice a day for
Yes.
20 years, and I don't do it that often,
Yes.
but I know the mechanics of it, and I know that feeling when you're
What we're asking you to remember or to know or to relearn or to learn anew is what that feels like when, in the connected, aligned state, an impulse comes to you, and with it comes such a strong feeling of satisfaction that wild horses will not keep you from doing it. And the thing is, most of you have trained your ability to receive those impulses away from yourself, because you've been seeking approval from others, trying to do the right thing. You've weighed the pros and the cons and the pluses and the minuses. You've got so many voices in your head about what you should do, what's the honorable thing to do, what's the practical thing to do, what's the smart thing to do. And so often you're really taking long, hard ways around what you're really asking for. Where as you get into that detached state and just sit there in the relief and peace of it for a while, and then when an impulse comes, give yourself permission to follow the impulse no matter what it is, just for a little while. If it's take a walk, do it. If it's get in the car and go somewhere, do it. Whatever it is, give yourself permission. You will very soon feel the impulse in such a strong way that you'll be able to discern, because you're meditating, and that's when the impulse comes. You see, you're not going to be able to very easily sort out where the impulse is coming from. Is it coming from need or from true allowing? Unless you're meditating and coming out of meditation when it comes. Because you're already receiving impulses, because impulses are the momentum of strong thoughts that are flowing. Did you hear that? Impulses, whether they're coming from this pure positive place of your inner being, knowing exactly what the best path of least resistance is for you, whether it's coming from there or whether it's coming from the momentum of things that you're sort of worried about. When an impulse comes, you're not going to know for sure whether it's coming from need or from joyous knowing, unless it's coming to you as you're coming out of meditation at first, just at first. Are you following us? This is the biggest sales job we've ever done in asking you to just try to discover for yourself personally the benefit of meditation. Because if you can show yourself what that impulse feels like, and the reason that we gave you the analogy of Esther and the furniture is because that's an impulse that ordinarily you would not trust, because you would assume that it's frivolous, that it's not important, because you've assumed that the things that matter to you often are not important. It's only the things that matter to other people that are really important.
So denying those impulses leads to the resentment that I feel at times.
Of course it does, because you're not replenishing. And the likelihood of your behavior changing that much is not very likely. Your behavior is probably not going to change that much. You're just going to be coming from resources that are replenishing. You see, Esther's this way too. We're working on talking her out of it too. If your impulse is to keep everybody happy or to make someone else happy, well, you can do that for a little while, but after a while you begin feeling resentful. Unless you're coming from that well of true power and empowerment and knowledge and resources, then you cannot sustain it for very long. It's a wonderful thing once you get in the flow of this, because now we want to pull this back from the specifics of this, because we know you got it, and just go back to this awareness of what it feels like when you are allowing the thoughts to turn to things, and you are in on the expansion and evolution of it. So you get to be there to witness the next explosion and the next and the next and the next as the vibration turns to a thought. That's a big, big deal. You must have wondered how it is that thoughts turn to things. You must have wondered where the prosperity comes from. There's no pipelines from other planets. They're not trucking it in from other places. It's all coming from the resources of the mind of those who are present here and the non-physical energy that is sustaining and supporting. This is the way this creation happens. And so when you allow yourself to get into the receiving mode, and then you receive this thought that is so strong that it's an impulse, and you acknowledge where it came from, and you follow through on that impulse, and then another, and then another, and then another, and then you watch how it unfolds, you get to witness what deliberate creating is. And deliberate creating is step one, is when you do all the asking. You do all your thinking and all your asking in step one. How about that? And when you go back to step one to try to do your thinking, it doesn't work out very well. You've done that thinking, you've put it into the vortex. Now let the universe orchestrate it and manage it. Then you get in the receptive mode and follow those impulses and watch how perfectly your life begins to be. Really good.
Really good.
Really good. Good time for a segment of refreshment.